Why, hello, my pretties. It's the Lion Queen here. So, I know I haven't did a top 10 video in a while, but I did some top 5 videos, etc. But the last top 10 video I did was on Muppet movies. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my top 10 favorite zombie movies of all time. Now, what I mean by all time is, and from my personal opinion, my favorite zombie movies. Now, I want to say right now that this is just my own opinion on them. And like, if you happen to disagree with me, that is perfectly fine too. I will respect your opinion if you don't like any of these movies. But I am just thought, you know what? Maybe I should go ahead and, review, do like this, basically do, a top 10 favorite zombie movies, which surprisingly, I have not done anything like this on the channel yet. So, well, here is, my top 10 favorite zombie movies of all time. Now, I am just going to sit here and say right now that this is just my own opinion. If you disagree with me on any of these movies that I'm going to say, that's fine. As long as you're respectful to my opinion, we should all be good. So I guess we should get started, shall we? Yes. Today I'm going to be doing George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead that came out in 1978. It is a really good zombie film, even though it was, pretty much directed by George A. Romero. The thing what I like about George A. Romero is because he made pretty good zombie films of this in the 70s. Even though this one came out in 1978, like late 70s, I still thought it was a pretty good movie. And basically, it's about these group of survivors trying to survive a zombie outbreak in a mall, which honestly, it seems like a pretty good concept for a movie, walking slow zombies, classic kills like in the head. That's pretty epic. I really enjoy that. However, though, the zombies look pretty cool looking. But I do also like the 2004 remake of Dawn of the Dead, which I thought the remake of Dawn of the Dead was good too. Although the zombies in the 2004 movie, they're running zombies. They're not like the walking slow zombies. They're like running fast zombies, like those zombies you'd find in movies like, for an example, they would be movies you would find in, Zombieland, stuff like that. But I personally thought the remake of it was pretty good too. But although that's just my own opinion, though. I mean, the remake of Dawn of the Dead was good, but I personally like George A. Romero's movie. So that's just my own opinion on it. So if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. You can let me know if you like this movie or not in the comments below, because I personally would like to hear what you all think. I personally really enjoyed this film. I thought it was really nice. So, I guess with that being the case and with that being said, yep. If you disagree with me on, the original Dawn of the Dead or the remake of it, let me know what you think in the comments below. And anyways, I think we should get started with the next one. Yep, I'm reviewing, well, not reviewing, but like the next zombie movie come up is another George A. Romero movie called Day of the Dead. Now, Day of the Dead came out in 1985, and while this one is a fantastic, awesome, great movie, I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good movie. I mean, it's a good continuation of the zombie series that that came out in the 80s. I mean, this one is like a sequel to it's pretty much part of the Night of the Living Dead series, but it's a sequel to Dawn of the Dead. Not necessarily a pretty, not necessarily a sequel, but you kind of get the picture. I mean, this is a pretty good movie, especially for something that was made in the 1980s. I mean, the 80s have like really great graphics when it comes to these movies, and this one is definitely one of the best zombie films from the 80s I've seen. I mean, you see people getting their guts ripped open, stuff like that. I mean, it's all pretty graphic. I mean, one guy gets like half his torso ripped off by zombies near towards the end of the movie somewhere. And it was still a really great zombie movie. And I mean, it's pretty epic to see that, you don't see, you see zombie movies get that graphic, but at the same time, this was something that was made in the 80s. Like, this is something that was made in the 1980s. So you'll definitely get that. And there was like one scene where a guy keeps screaming, where, well, his head is getting, pulled away from his body. I mean, and he was still screaming, and it got high pitched so loud. I mean, this is a movie from the 80s, and I mean, they went to from 1 to 100 pretty quickly. So, the plot of, this movie, I did review this on Shadows and Pretties as well, so you could watch that if you want. I also reviewed Dawn of the Dead, the original on Shadows and Pretties as well. Forgot to mention that. So, basically, the plot of this movie is basically a handful of surviving humans are living with a secure underground bunker with housing scientists and soldiers in the Everglades as the scientists are trying to find a solution to the zombie pandemic. Honestly, it was a pretty good film, actually. I personally really liked this one. I thought it was a really neat movie, and I personally really, really enjoyed this. It was a pretty good, movie. So, in my honest opinion, George Romero also written and directed this film, to which I really enjoy. Now, there is a 2008 remake of this movie, but I do not like the remake of this movie. The remake of Dawn of the Dead was better, but the Day of the Dead remake was not that good. However, there is another, Day of the Dead movie that came out in 2018 called Day of the Dead Bloodline, which I see that as a much better continuation of it, but I have not seen it yet, so I can't really say. However, there is Day of the Dead sequel, a sequel to Day of the Dead, and that happened to be, I think it's a 2005 movie. Can't remember, but it's pretty much called Day of the Dead 2 Conjuringum or whatever it was called. I personally really did not care for that one. But I mean, I haven't watched that one in a really long time, so I would have to rewatch it again, if that makes any sense. So, yep, that's it I have to say about, um, Day of the Dead. Let's get on with the next movie on our list. 28 Days Later came out in 2002, and it's pretty much a British post apocalyptic horror film directed by Danny Boyle and written by Alex Garland. Now, this movie also has a sequel that came out in 2007 called 28 Weeks Later. So I will talk a bit about that one because I have not seen 28 Weeks Later in a long time. Well, I probably only saw it once, but I've seen 28 Days Later. There is a comic series based on this as well, which I did not even know there was a comic based on this. But basically the plot of the movie is called an aggression inducing virus called the Rage is unleashed in Britain after an infected chimpanzee gets freed from the laboratory in Cambridge by a group of ECO terrorists. It is spread rapidly and it becomes an epidemic. So it's pretty much like a zombie film, but however, there's some alternative endings, of this movie. One of them includes, characters dying, etc., etc. So, but I still thought that the movie was pretty good. Even though I haven't watched 28 Days Later in a long time, it's still a pretty good movie. But although Shaun of the Dead, in my personal opinion, was a lot better, and I will be getting to that in a little bit. 28 Weeks Later, however, is a sequel to it that came out in 2007. So basically, it takes place 6 months after the original epidemic, with the rage virus still annihilated the population of British Isles. Nevertheless, the U.S. Army declares the danger past, so the American soldiers arrived to restore and began the reconstruction of it. So that's basically the plot of the sequel. I have not watched the sequel in like years, so I kind of haven't really watched it in a really long time, so there's definitely that. But you could definitely say it was a good movie. I mean, I personally am gonna have to find the time to rewatch it because, I haven't watched this movie in like years. It's still a really fantastic movie. I thought it was a really great concept for a movie. It's really good, actually. I personally liked it. So, I guess we should get on with the next one on our list. Now, you guys know that this is a movie series called, well, Resident Evil. And Resident Evil had like a lot of other movies, you know, but however, I remember seeing this movie from 2002. Well, I did have it on VHS at one point. And Resident Evil is based on the popular video game. So, I personally like the video games a lot better than the films, but the movie was pretty good. I mean, I personally really like the movies. There is, movies that are based on games that were just as good, but I prefer the video games well, of this series a lot better. Now, basically this film basically takes place in Raccoon City where, well, Umbrella Corporation unleashes a T virus that contaminates the hive with it and pretty much starts killing, some people and becomes everyone becomes zombies and stuff. So while I can say it borrowed elements from the first two Resident Evil games, I personally like the games better than the movies. Now, the Resident Evil movie that came out in 2002, I think I still have it on VHS, although I haven't really watched the movie in like a really long time, but I prefer the games more better. The games, in my personal opinion, were a lot better because I played the game series and the games are a lot better, at least in my honest opinion, but I could respect people's opinions if they like the movies better. So, I know there's other movies to this series, such as Resident Evil Apocalypse, which that one was a good one, as well as Extinction. Afterlife was a pretty good one, as well as, well, the Retribution. I think that's what it's called. And there is this one movie of Resident Evil I have not watched yet. It's called The Final Fight. I still have not seen it yet, but I do plan to see it sometime in the future. But while I could say I've seen all the Resident Evil movies, I personally really like I personally, in my opinion, I like the original games. The original games were a lot better, in my honest opinion. I personally like the games better, but the movies were pretty good too, regardless. So I guess that's pretty much just all I have to really say. So I guess we should get on with the next one. World War Z is definitely a pretty good movie from 2003, and this stars Brad Pitt in this movie. And honestly, I saw this film and it was a pretty good movie. I mean, it's just as good as, some of the other films I mentioned earlier, but I haven't watched this in like a couple years. But the film of it is just awesome. I mean, Brad Pitt, the star of the film, this one was just really good. I mean, I was honestly looking forward to this movie. So basically, this plot is about Gary Lane, his wife Karen, and their two daughters, Rachel and Connie, get stuck in Philadelphia traffic. And that is when they found out that the city has been overrun by zombies. So they escape to Newark and take refuge with their couple and young son Tommy, who then get rescued by the helicopter sent by UN Deputy Security, the Secretary General. Terry Unamandi or something. So this is pretty much almost like World War, but this one involves zombies. And I mean, I have not watched this movie in, like I said, a long time, but I personally really enjoyed this film. I mean, it's got Brad Pitt. It's a pretty great movie. I mean, I love a lot of movies with Brad Pitt in it because I really liked him as an actor. Although I haven't watched the movie in like years, I'm gonna have to find the time to rewatch this film. I don't know when I'll get the time to rewatch it, but I will rewatch it sometime. And if you're a zombie fan, I highly recommend adding World War Z to your collection. Like, I swear to God right now, you are not going to be disappointed. Like, I'm saying that right now, you are not going to be disappointed. It is an absolutely must watch film. If you're a zombie person fan, I really recommend you add this to your collection. So, like I said, I'm going to have to rewatch this movie because I haven't watched it in a long time, but it's still a pretty awesome movie, and I do recommend you guys check it out. I mean, I don't think I ever seen this in theaters because I think I was a little, well, I think I was around close to 15 when it came out, but I didn't get to see it in theaters. But if you guys did, then you're really lucky. So I guess we should go on with the next one. Now, I think I'm considering and maybe adding 28 days later, 28 weeks later, as well as, well, World War Z to my Shadows and Pretties episode series. Well, I'm considering doing that for the future. But I also did this movie on Shadows and Pretties when I started up the podcast series back like 3 years ago. And this is called Shaun of the Dead. Now, most of you guys pretty much remember, this movie, Shaun of the Dead. It's another British film, but I definitely gotta say, it is the most funniest movie I have ever seen. I've seen some other British movies, but Shaun of the Dead is awesome. It's got Simon Pegg, it's got Nick Frost, it's got a lot of these great actors that came in to play, and this was definitely a very fun movie. Now, Nick Frost, as well as Simon Pegg, were also in other movies such as Hot Fuzz and Paul, which I basically have not seen Hot Fuzz in a long time, but it was still a pretty good film. So basically, this film, it does have pretty good acting, and the actress did amazing job. I personally like a lot of them because most of these actors, they're pretty good when it comes to acting, and I personally really thought this was enjoyable. So, about this movie, for any of you guys who are wondering what the plot is about, the plot is basically about Shaun, who, lives in Crouch End in London, who basically does not, you know, have much going on. He has no direction in his life. He basically gets disrespected by his colleagues, does not get along with by his stepfather Philip, gets dumped by his girlfriend after he fails to make decent plans to celebrate their 3-year anniversary. However, this is when we see Shaun hanging out with Ed more often. And of course, it's a pretty good film. There's good acting, there's good characters, there's good, a lot of things. There was like a lot of great characters that these actors played. And honestly, I recommend this movie. This movie is so funny. I mean, if you want a really good comedy, even if it's a British comedy, highly recommend this movie. You will not be disappointed. This film is awesome. I did also review this back in 2020, which, by the way, that review of it was complete garbage because of how old it is. But I mean, that was back before I had my computer at the time. But this is also in Shadows and Pretties in a podcast episode. So if you guys want to go check that out, it's on my channel. I have a playlist dedicated to it. So you guys will always go and, check it out. But, anyways, I highly recommend Shaun of the Dead. Awesome movie. You will not be disappointed. So there is definitely that. You will definitely love this film. So, anyways, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. Yep, I had to put this on this list, and that is Zombieland. Wow, this movie is honestly one of my favorite zombie films of all time, like my top 10. I mean, I'm going to review the first one as you'll see why this movie's down here, like at place number 4 instead of number 2 or something. Well, you're going to find out why eventually in a little bit. So basically, this movie in Zombieland involves the main character played by Jesse Eisenberg named Columbus, who's basically surviving the outbreak of zombies. He runs into people like Tallahassee, who's played by Woody Harrelson, Wichita, played by Emma Stone. You also got Abigail Breslin, who's Little Rock in this movie. I mean, the movie itself is just flat out funny. I mean, this movie is like 14 years old right now because I'm looking at it. It's like 14 years old. I still really thought this one was a really funny movie. It's really funny. They do have a sequel that I'm going to be talk about in a little bit called well, Zombieland 2, but I will be talking about that in a little bit. So you guys will have to stick around for that because I like the second one a lot better. This one definitely serves a pretty great purpose when it comes to these films. I mean, these films are pretty funny. I'm not going to lie. It's a very funny movie, and I highly recommend if you're a zombie fan to please watch this movie. It's really good. You will not be disappointed. It is a really awesome film, and I do recommend it to anybody who's a zombie fan. So, I have not watched this movie in a while either, but I personally liked it. I personally like it, and I thought it was a great movie. So that's just pretty much all I have to say. But if you are, looking for a good zombie film, I definitely recommend checking this one out. You will not be disappointed. So I guess with that said, let's get on with the next one. Yep, this movie is called Dead Clowns. Now, honestly, this movie is just one of those that are so bad, but actually quite good in a sense. So, I have not watched this movie in a really long time, but I don't understand why a lot of people don't like this movie. I did, however, manage to see this movie on YouTube. I think it's still on YouTube, but I could be wrong, however. But a lot of people really do not like this movie. And honestly, while I can respect that that's their opinion, I personally thought this movie was alright for what it is. I still really like it, so there's definitely that. Now, what is Dead Clowns basically about? Well, the plot of this movie is quite simple. This takes place in Florida, a small town in Florida, where a hurricane just slammed into the area, and that's where the zombies, well, clowns start to come out and kill people. Now, however, though, a circus train was originally have clowns in there, and there's a circus going to the town. However, though, a train accidentally bumps in a boat or something accidentally bumps into a bridge, and when it bumps into the bridge, the train derails, and all the clowns unfortunately die. And then like 50 years later, there is a big hurricane, and the clowns come back to life as zombies, and they come out from the water, and they start attacking, not really attacking the town, just pretty much attacking just a few people. Like I said, I like clowns, but this movie was just kind of mixed for me. I mean, I like it, but at the same time, I don't. I personally did not really care for this Dead Clowns movie because honestly, the clowns kind of reminds me a bit of Burial Ground a little bit, with some of the zombies. I think there was a scene where a zombie uses like a television, like one of those undead zombie clowns uses a television or something to break in through a door to get to somebody. While the makeup on it looks like there's skeletons, tin faces and that, I kind of feel that it's almost ripping off Burial Ground: The Nights of Terror. That's just in my opinion. Because when I was younger, back in as a teen, when I saw it, I honestly loved this movie. But now looking at it as an adult, I kind of have mixed feelings on it because it's been about uh, 10, 11 years since I saw this film. Honestly, I feel that it's ripping off Burial Ground: The Nights of Terror, but that's just my opinion. I mean, that's just my opinion personally, but if you like this movie, I respect your opinion. If you don't like it, that's perfectly fine with me too. So, yeah, I mean, I have not watched this movie in a long time, but I'm gonna have to consider, rewatching this movie again because I have not watched this movie in like ages. Like, I mean, it's been forever since I last watched this movie. So, anyways, let's get on with the next one. It's this Italian zombie movie that I've been recently, talking about the last couple days or something. You know, no, just chilling in my bedroom, just doing my own thing and watch movies. And this movie is called Burial Ground: The Nights of Terror. It's an Italian zombie movie that involves, these three couples go to this, mansion, and because they were invited by the professor, and that's when the professor, the night before unleashes the curse upon the area because apparently, you know, there were zombies that, attack these people one by one, the people that were visiting the house. I mean, these are played by Italian actors. I mean, it's pretty good to be honest, and I can definitely say that right now that while this movie is pretty amazing, in my honest opinion. This is also directed by Andrea Bianchi. And I did review this, I think, back in 2021 or 2022. I did review this movie back then. I can't remember when I touched this movie, but I did touch this movie to review it back then. So you guys will probably remember it. If you guys remember my Shadows and Pretties podcast playlist, you guys can go check out an episode where I reviewed Burial Ground. I did also review this back in 2020, like back then, but that review is not really the best. In my honest opinion, though, that is. So, honestly, I personally really like these Italian zombie movies. This one is definitely one of them that I personally really find it to be good. While I can respect people's opinions that not everybody likes this film, and the reason why I have to say the only main reason I don't like about this film was the fact that Michael has like an unhealthy obsession with his mother in an incest way, and I'm not going to go too much into detail on that because yeah, it's just really messed up. And I mean, yeah, and the kid who is in this movie is played by Peter Bark, who is a midget. I think he was around 25 or something when he played the character. I can't remember, but that's personally from what I remember personally. And this movie did get controversy because of that. I personally do know for a fact that you could find this movie on YouTube as well. So you guys, if you want to go check out this movie, I recommend it if you like zombie movies. This one is definitely one of them. I can say it's so bad, but it's so good at the same time in a good sense. It's so bad, but it's good at the same time. Now, I did a Drew Pickles video just recently. When I mean just recently, it was like on Drew Pickles explains his reasons for not starring in said movie. This is the first one movie I done with Drew Pickles explain his reasons for not starring in this one like a couple weeks or so ago. A couple days or a few weeks ago or something. If you guys remember me making that Drew Pickles video, then you'll know that this is the movie I'm talking about. Anyways, I think we should go on with the number one place in my top 10 favorite zombie movies. Yep, and that is Zombieland 2 Double Tap. Now, I personally mentioned earlier that I like the second movie better than the first one, and there is a good reason to this movie because I found this movie, the second movie, in my honest opinion, to be more funnier and more entertaining than the first movie. I mean, I like the first movie, but this one, which is the second movie that came out 10 years after the first movie came out, I find it to be more funnier and more entertaining and enjoyable than the first one. I personally liked the first movie. I thought it was good. The second movie, on the other hand, was flat out pretty good. This one, I definitely got to say, they brought all the cast and, the cast that was in the first movie back there. And basically, the plot of this movie is basically comes across, our characters from the first zombie movie. They traveled to the White House and they were fleeing to Graceland and Memphis. However, they encounter some, more group of survivors, like they come across like another group of survivors. Like we got Zoe Deutch as Madison, we got Rosanna Dawson as Nevada. Bill Murray's in this one too. I mean, he did make a cameo appearance in the first movie, so they had to bring him back to do a cameo appearance in this one. Now, I personally like the second movie better than the first one. It's a pretty good film. I highly recommend it because honestly, I really enjoyed this one when I first saw it. I mean, I didn't see it in theaters. I think I was going to see it in theaters, but then something came up and I ended up not seeing this movie in theaters. I can't remember what it was, but I personally really wanted to see this movie in theaters. But, well, who knows, actually? I mean, I personally thought it was a good movie. So, with that being said and that being the case, Um, I found this movie to be a lot better than the first one, at least in my personal opinion. But if you like the first one more, then I respect your opinion. So I guess with that being the case and that being said, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. And I do believe I did mention this in Shadows and Pretties, but I'm considering maybe doing a review on this movie, maybe for Halloween or something, but I don't know yet though, because it really depends on when I get the time to review these movies. So anyways, that's all my zombie picks for, top 10 favorite zombie movies. And what did you guys think of any of the movies I listed? Did you like them? Did you not? Also, what we have done personally to help make any of these movies better? Leave me know what you think all in the comments below, because I personally would like to hear it. As always, I'm the Lion Queen. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, be sure to follow me on DeviantArt and my Twitter account, as links to those will be in the About page section of my channel. Also, if you're interested, be sure to subscribe to my backup channel known as Miss Dark Shigo. So, link to that will also be in the About page section of this channel, so you guys can go check it out. And as always, if I am missing anything that I did not say or whatever, please let me know in the comments below. I guess with that being said and that being the case, I am going to be seeing you guys all in the next video. And if you guys want to hear more of my top 10 favorite movies, TV shows, or whatever, let me know in the comments below, because I personally would like to hear it. So as always, please roll the outro, because I'm out of here and I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.